guests to please take their seats so that we can now start with the fireside chat of the evening. And Pradeep sir, if you could remain and stay back since you're going to moderate this fireside chat, the next panel that we are having. And the topic is India Stack and Skill India, making India a tech powerhouse. In this session, we have esteemed speakers who will discuss the transformative initiatives of India Stack and Skill India in driving India's growth as a technology powerhouse. Let me introduce my speakers for this session. We have with us Shri Harish Mehta, author, The Maverick Effect. Harish Mehta is an accomplished author and technology entrepreneur. With his deep industry knowledge, Harish will discuss the impact of Skill India in nurturing a skilled workforce to meet the demands of the technology sector, driving innovation and growth. Welcome, sir, to the panel. Our next panelist, Sanjay Nayak, MD, Tejas Networks. Sanjay Nayak is the Managing Director of Tejas Networks, a leading networking solutions provider, and he will shed light on the role of technology companies in leveraging the India Stack ecosystem and the importance of skill development in creating a sustainable tech powerhouse. Welcome, sir, to the panel. And our fireside chat is moderated by none other than Pradeep Gupta, the chairman of CyberMedia Group. During this fireside chat, we will explore the transformative power of initiatives like India Stack and Skill India in driving India's growth as a technology powerhouse and discuss the impact of initiatives on digital transactions, financial inclusion, skill development, and the overall digital ecosystem. Over to you, PG, for this fireside chat.
Thank you very much. Am I? Just a second. So, thank you very much. Since the morning we've been having this discussion about the 2047 roadmap and so on. So, let me start with you, Harish bhai. Why don't you shed some perspective on the lessons of the software industry and what do they sort of give a direction as far as the next 25 years are concerned?
I think it's what I've written as a title of my book, The Maverick Effect. So I'll talk about the Maverick Effect here. That some of the Mavericks of NASSCOM, they are present here. Here, they are the fierce competitors in the marketplace. And they came together under the umbrella of NASSCOM, kept in any decision, basically, for the industry.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think the MC just came to me and said that she has missed out one name we wanted to be on this panel. So, Ashank, can you also join us, please? Yeah, sorry, continue, Harish.
So when these fierce competitors came together under the NASSCOM umbrella, one of the first things we decided was to build trust between policymakers and the industry. Because in those days, and maybe still today also, at a different level, in those days, bureaucrats were probably, you can say, suffering from colonial mindset. They were not trusting business people. Right. Profit was a bad word. It was a socialistic license Raj mentality. They even didn't know what software is. So starting from there, and the focus, in those days, the technology gatekeepers were scientists, educationists, who didn't believe in IT services or technology services as a business model. They thought it's a cyber coolies work, techno coolies work, low-end work. Why should India do it? But those of us who were in business at that point in time believed that that's the area where we have a huge opportunity, labor arbitrage, advantage. But how do you sell this vision to the bureaucrats, policymakers? So that's one part, and I can go into the different stories there,
sure.
How we built trust with the bureaucrats. And once we built that trust, hundreds of regulations that were strangulating the tech services business we can say, removed over a period of 5 years. And then the industry took off.
Sure. So you are saying two things. One is that there should be trust that should be built between the industry and the government. And the second thing is that
Between
there
the
has to be
industry also.
cooperation.
Yeah.
So, on a number of different issues, we should cooperate. Uh, by the way, allow me to also, bring in some of you in this entire discussion, and I will do so after I hear some of the views from others. So let me now switch over to you, Sanjay. Uh, so, software story got established over the last 25 years or so. But in terms of technology, we were spending very little on R&D. We were not really taking the forefront. Now, for example, 4G, when that came up, we were just catching the technology which was available to us from elsewhere, from a Chinese company or from a European company or from a US company, and utilizing that. But the entire thing started shifting gears when 5G started happening. And considering that we are one of the largest users of the mobile network, why should we not be leading the entire drive towards standards? And indeed, what Tejas and the entire sort of, the four partners which came together and formed that, what they have achieved is absolutely path-breaking. Okay, so can there be a playbook for future tech developments that we could establish from what has happened in the Tejas story?
Certainly. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share some of my experiences. So, as you rightly said that, and let me recount a little bit from the Tejas experience from the day we started. So, we started about 23 years back, just about this time in 2000. Software industry was well established. A few of us got together and said, well, how come, very simple question, how come India doesn't have its own products, And Desh Deshpande was with us, and along with a couple of other co-founders. So with a very simple vision that we should and have to establish a deep technology product company from India is where we started. Second thing was that what we started to build out was equipment which looks like a hardware. It is a hardware, of course, but there's a lot of software which goes into it as well, right? So we started building products, and then along the way, there were all kind of challenges. Number one, for example, I remember after we started the company and developed the first product, we went to a couple of telcos in India, the larger ones, of course. Those are still there. So the first question they asked is, किसकी technology है? So we said, नहीं हमारी है. वो तो सब लोग बोलते हैं, but TOT किससे किया? So that was lesson number one, and which we believed, and General Pant is here, and I have many times had a discussion with him that in tech world, there's nothing like TOT. There's only TOOT. So you only get transfer of obsolete technology. How come a company who spent billions of dollars developing a technology will give you the technology? So the playbook is very simple. I think if we have to be a technology nation, if we have to build our own products, the IPR, the hardware, the software, the architecture, everything has to belong to us. So I think that's number one. And we took the hard route in Tejas, starting as a startup in 2000, technically a hardware startup, nobody was willing to fund, raising money over 4 or 5 rounds, scaling up. 2008-9, we started to see the Chinese effect where everything you could buy for free, how do you compete with free? Then we still hung in, moved on. Then we went IPO, and that got us some, strength. But all along, the thing which did not change, and which is what has to happen, is that you have to focus on technology. We probably still spend about 15, 17, 18% of our revenues in R&D. So you have to invest in R&D. You have to think long term. It has taken us 23 years, so it will take time. Number 3, which is a very important ingredient for success in systems industry, which one can call hardware or whatever, is that you have to have economies of scale. There are really 2 geographies in the world, 2 countries in the world, if I were to say, which give you that economies of scale. And we have to learn the lesson there, China and India. The way the world has progressed in the last 25 years is that you've got to dominate your home market. So if you look at, and we've done a lot of research around that 65% of the revenues of Huawei and ZTE for many years came from China, still do. And if you actually add US and EU as a bloc, which works together, 65% of the revenues of all the leading European or US telecom equipment companies also comes from there. So I think it's almost evident to us that if we have to dominate and become a global player, we've got to dominate our home market in the hardware, whether it's laptops, computers, telecom equipment, anything that you produce, you've got to get the volume economics. India and China gave it. Luckily, we are all in India, so I think this is point number one. The second thing which is very crucial, and again, I would recount with the last 4 or 5 years of experience, that every industry, if you look at it, you have to set up all the cards on the table in the right way, and when the cards are being laid out, it also seems very frustrating from an entrepreneurial angle or from a business angle that how come we are not as big as we should be or as big as we can be. So if you look at the IT services industry from 81, the time that you actually started DataQuest and around this time, most of the companies, if I'm not mistaken, 98, 99 were probably about $100, $200 million in size or somewhere thereabouts. Not even that.
The total industry was less than 100 crores.
Okay. No. I'm talking 98, 99. Okay.
98,
98,
99.
99.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to say is from 81 to 98, 99, the largest company in the industry was a couple of $100 million. Then there was an event. You lined up everything, the model was proven, and then some external event happens which becomes your catalyst. The event, at least in my limited knowledge, and you guys are the experts, was the Y2K event. In the telecom industry and the product industry, the electronics industry, if I were to put it as a broader agenda, which is what will take us to the next 25 years, that event was COVID and the shift of geopolitical things, where everything in the world is connected. As General Pant said, the amount of connectivity, trust factor has become a problem number one, not a problem number three. With that being in place, trusted source, trusted equipment, trusted technologies becomes paramount. India is the world's trusted source for everything technology. We have the highest amount of MNCs having their R&D centers, so they can trust all that work to be done here. All the IT services are doing most mission critical work for there. So I think we take that DNA, put that into developing technology, which and think about it this way, I think someone mentioned that, you mentioned that India is one of the largest market for telecom in 4G, 5G. There's another fact which we don't highlight. The highest number of R&D engineers working in the telecom industry, other than China, is in India.
Right.
So we have so much of talent, except it was being used for developing products for someone else. So I think we need to take the confidence that we can do it ourselves, take the success of the Indian market, enlarge it and scale it up on a global basis, and then world is looking at a source for trusted telecom products, trusted electronics, trusted supply chain, and I think India is perfectly poised to fit into that shoe and really kind of make this as a one big impact. It's a multi-$100 billion industry where we can make a big impact in the world and of course in our own economy. So I really think the lessons are this, that invest and really wait for the right time and go scale up.
Yeah, but another very interesting part of your entire story was also the entire group of companies that came together, including academia. So, you had IIT Madras and TCS and so on. And I think that can be an example that can definitely, a lot of people can follow. Yeah.
Just Sanjay, while I partly agree with your Y2K point, it's one of the enabler, but there were many other things that happened, and I give full credit to NASCOM, frankly, in terms of how the industry took off and what are the various things that happened over a
No, absolutely. I mean, I just mentioned that as one of the catalysts, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the foundation was rock solid and things were there. Absolutely.
Yeah. We were there at the right time to be able to address that. So, Ashank, technology gazing is very difficult. 25 years, you don't know what technologies are going to come up. Just about 18 months back, everybody was swearing by metaverse. Suddenly, everybody is swearing by AI. And so, these things keep on, it's a very shifting kind of a landscape which is there. How does a government and industry and associations plan together for, say, a 2047 kind of a situation?
Good question. So, I think as you rightly said, PG, this will happen if all of us are together. So that's obviously the point number one. But how to make it happen is of course, important point. So I think, like any other thing, the first step or an important step has to start from government. And that is about thinking strategically. A nation has to think at a highest level, at a strategy as to where we want to dominate. Where are our competitive advantages in a way? Not as a business competitive advantage, but national competitive advantage. Which are the places that we are going to occupy 25 years from now? Not technology, but a space, a domain space I'm talking. Nobody can define technologies. Once that gets clarity, and I think uh, China has done a good job, in spite of all that we may say, to think in terms of those strategies. And this strategies is not about only the technology part, but beyond many other geopolitical issues. So I think one has to start from there at one level. Once that happens, and that will depend on industry studies, it depends on what we are good at, what are our weak spots. It's a science by itself. But what I'm saying is, government has to think strategically, is one larger point that I'm making. Once that happens, some of the umbrella actions by the government enable industry to move faster than what it can be. Industry can anyway come without government in a way, which happens, but government accelerates it by doing some things and de-accelerates it by not doing something. As Harish rightly said, the industry happened because government was supportive and was willing to invest their time. And we had leaders like Mr. Vittal and many others who came after him, who were willing to support us to make it happen. If that were not happened, IT industry would have still happened. But it would not have been of this size, right? So that is the point that is being made here is government plays an important role in making that happen. And then industry, of course, takes a next step by forming association to be one single face. And that, I think, we did very well. Uh, of course, my dear friend
Yeah.
Harish has described it well in his book, so I don't want to repeat. But NASSCOM story is an example where industry could come together and trust each other. The word is TRUST.
Yeah,
That was the foundation. It would not happen without it. The point I'm making is this trilateral trust relationship between industry, government, and amongst each other to form associations is a story that drives that, is the point I'm making.
sure.
If we had distrusted everybody, which is what was happening, and even happens in some other industries probably now. By the way, PG, people call us to talk about how NASSCOM happened, many other industry associations. I won't name them, but they invite us to speak as to how to make that happen. The point I'm making is that trust part and strategy part are the important pillars, is the point I'm making.
But, is the strategic domain only the government's thinking, or should it be government, industry, academia, the various stakeholders which are there, the common man? Should it be a think tank sort of an approach that is required? And
Pradeep,
yeah.
we call it, like NASSCOM has followed proactive, consultative policy making process. So like even just few days back, NASSCOM released guidelines for responsible AI, proactively.
Right.
Now that has to be inculcated, work with the government when the regulations come in. So we need to work together, and Kiran is here. One of his favorite subjects is that we don't have sufficient think tanks in India to be part of this proactive consultative process for the areas which everybody don't know. You and I don't know how AI is going to unfold tomorrow. There are so many unknowns.
Right.
So you need to have a flexibility built into your policy making process also. But that can only happen when all the stakeholders sit together and go forward. Just to give an example of how we built that process with when Mr. Vittal came in the early days. He said, you got hundreds of regulations sort of strangulating your industry. Give me 3 things to work on. What are our top 3 priorities? We told him proactively, Mr. Vittal, will not give you 3 things. We'll only ask 1 thing. He said, what? He said, you will consult us. Whenever you make change, when the word software appears anywhere, you will consult us.
Okay.
He said, only consult you, not accept your recommendation? We said, yes. At that time, some other officers argued, why should we talk to the private sector? So Mr. Vittal said, listen, first of all, we don't understand software and services. And so at least they're giving an opportunity for us to listen to them before we take the decision. And the final decision is still yours.
Right.
That process worked like a magic. And then, of course, it took off in terms of making those changes. But that consulting is absolutely critical that all the stakeholders sit together.
Wonderful. So can I have a mic going to Mr. Kiran Karnik? Mr. Goyal, I'll come to you, but can I have a mic going to Mr. Karnik? And, he talked about that you've been working on the think tank, and so your views would be great to hear. Can we have a mic there?
Thank you, PG. With nothing much to add, and thank you, Harish, for referring to that. It's been a bee in my bonnet. We don't have a good technology think tank in the country. Technology, I don't mean hardcore technology. I mean looking at technologies very broadly in terms of future policies, looking at 10 years, 20 years. And I think very good examples given that there's a flavor of the day that comes and goes. It's metaverse, it's AI, who knows what will happen 2 years from now. We need somebody who's thinking ahead from the point of view, as Ashank said, strategically, not of which technology, but of broader issues, and beginning to put these into the public sphere for discussion. And then, as Harish just said, it has to be discussed between all the stakeholders involved. And that will get us not only a consensus, but new ideas, debate, discussion. But we need something that starts with an in-depth look, understands technology, understands industry, understands what direction the world is going in, and looks at much broader aspects on, including the geostrategic issues that we have come up with. So the thought was just to trigger something there that creates such think tank.
And are any formal structures required for achieving that kind of a thing?
No, I think it needs to be
in terms of think
just
tanks.
quick reaction. I think it needs to be nucleated, and at least my view is that it should be nucleated by industry, but not limited to industry. Only nucleated. The genesis should come just as it did for NASCOM, for something that's independent, different, but then works with all stakeholders, including government.
Sure. We have the chairman NCVET, Mr. Kalsi, also here. So can the mic please go to him also? And 2047, if we want to become world's #1 economy, and we want to become the leading IT nation of the world, obviously skill is going to be a big challenge, right? And so therefore, what needs to be done in the next 25 years so that we have the talent available to achieve those goals?
I think future of work is something which we are looking at. Now, what we have done, we have identified 60 sectors. In all 60 sectors, we are working on the future of work. We are talking to each one of them, and we are asking them as to how your sector is expected to change. But most of the people are not really aware of the factors which are going to impact their own sectors. So we are first guiding them and then trying to explain to them as to how the future of work is going to change. Now, based on that, we are coming up with future skills. So far, in about 30 sectors, we have identified more than 325 future skills. And these future skills have been designed and developed in consultation with the industry, and now they are available on the national qualification registers. So I would request the industry to adopt these future skills, impart trainings. We are also doing the same thing for all our institutions. We are encouraging ITIs, we are encouraging engineering colleges, we are encouraging all the universities. And secondly, the skills are being integrated into the education system. This is happening for the first time, that after NEP 2020 has been approved by Honorable Prime Minister in 29th July 2020, we have come up with the National Credit Framework, which allows integration of skilling into each aspect of education. And secondly, you can accumulate your credits from academic education, from skill education, and also from the experiential learning. And all these credits put together will get you a certificate, a diploma, or a degree. So we are trying to integrate all these future skills there. So now this year, specifically, we are working on future of work and future skills. And I would request any inputs from any one of you. Thank you.
Wonderful. So you are saying that, the NEP and the NCRF framework will ensure that we have the talent pool which is available for this journey going ahead.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Can the mic come to General Pant? General Pant, you spoke about the challenges that we have. Again, I'm talking of 2047 roadmap, and can we become the world's security capital?
Thank you. There's no harm in dreaming, but let me tell you, as a nation, geopolitically, we are probably the best placed. And the reasons are obvious, that we are not aligned to either side. So a lot of nations are coming now to us for various aspects. So this is a very important point. When we talk of the future of India and the fact that even in the present churning of what is happening geopolitically, the supply chain aspects and all that, India has stood its own. You heard the External Affairs Minister and everyone, and the praise that we are getting to it. So this is a plus point for the industry to address the global market, because we have this is one aspect. The aspect of PPP, if I may say so, public-private partnership, we are practicing it in my particular vertical in 2-3 different manners. One is that in this National Security Council for the telecom sector that I mentioned, we always have 2 industry stalwarts. That is the one that takes the decision on the trusted products and trusted sources. Presently, Sunil Bharti Mittal and Chandra of Tata Chairman is there. So these 2 are there. They've been with us for the last 2 years. And so these 2 industry stalwarts always, and their advice, we find that the points that they come out with are definitely not known to the government, and it is very much required. So I would strongly recommend what Mr. Desai was also saying, that while the policy is being formulated, there has to be industry participation. I think that start point is very important. After that, all the aspects that you said are absolutely fine. The way we are going about it, that I find that when I get the entire industry together for a PPP sort of a meeting, there are various views. So what we do is we do it sector-wise. So we have the power sector people coming to us and we discuss their problems, then we have telecom sector, then we have the financial sector. That is the way we are going about it. But it is being done. But I must say that there's a lot more work that can be done. And I'm noting down all the points that are being discussed.
Thank you very much. Raji, you are there. So, today, throughout the sessions, there was a lot of debate and discussion on the industry and academia partnership. And you've been right at the core of this kind of a thing. And of course, Professor Bose talked about, he gave a 3-point agenda and so on. But your views on how do we, because, if you look at the global industry, if you look at US specifically for, as an example, the internet came out of academia, right? So many technologies that have become global technologies have actually come out of an academia interaction that took place with the with the industry. So your views.
Thanks, PG, and first, congratulations. I think there is one force at work which will get us all to do what we have to do, which is the number of young minds being created in this country and what is being done to educate and prepare them. So the bulge, people talk of dividend, will it come disaster? I think it's very clear. To me, it's absolutely clear that this bulge, which will still be very active in 47, is a huge, huge asset. And the Indian mind, which the world is talking about now, in all its sense of balance, I think General Pant talked about the trust that people have. I hear Mr. Kalsi talking about saying whether it's skill or education, just put everything together. There are many energies at work at this time which will empower this young Indian mind to explode in its ideas. It's beginning to happen. I think the first big symptom was the IT sector. Now we are seeing it happen across the board. So I think the real issue is how to let people free, if I may use it. So if there's reforms in education, that is to let people free. If you're saying skills is education, everything is put together, let people free. If you talk about collaborating industry, government, it's about letting things free. So what we really need to do is how do we liberate the Indian mind? The rest will be magic and it'll happen. I don't think we need, the policy has to be less policy, more freedom, more liberating, more collaboration. And I see it happening.
And once we put our mind to it,
Yeah,
you are saying indeed it will happen. Professor Goel, you wanted to say something.
I think maybe I'm out of place also because I'm a hardcore telecom man. But I was excited to hear Harish something and I wanted to have his advice. We are, as I'm happy that Mr. Sanjay Nayak is here, he is the past chairman of TPC. One word, domestic strength is first required for exports. We are under tremendous pressures from everywhere for exports. When it comes to domestic, the policies of the government, we are not able to bring trust between us, address hardly 8% of the market of India. Standards are made by government, nobody follows it. Not even the Department of Telecom itself follows it. So I wanted to have Harish's view how to unstangle this thing. Thank you.
Harish bhai. You wanted your views on. So, I mean, if I understood correctly, one point that you are making is that the domestic industry is small, and especially you are referring to the hardware industry. Would I be right in assuming that?
Actually, as per the policy of the government for Make in India, they give preference to domestic industry.
Make in India.
But it applies to only Government of India projects. It doesn't apply to states, it doesn't apply to all other private operators. So it caters only BSNL, which is hardly 8%.
And whatever are the policies, guidelines which are set up are also not implemented,
Yes,
including by the government departments themselves. So that was the point that he was making. So domestic manufacturing in a number of areas. And so, like software was an export story, but when it comes to the domestic manufacturing, there are challenges. So I think
it's a very complex issue, frankly, and it cuts across all the different players. So to me, we have built an unfortunate environment, which I call it Lala, Neta, Jola, Gunda nexus. So that nexus.
Just repeat that again.
Lala, Neta, Jola, Judge, Gunda nexus.
Okay.
So that is a nexus which is like invisible to all of us. It's like an invisible bus. It is killing millions of people in some way. So it does not allow any segment to grow up freely. So we have to figure out how we break that nexus of these different players together, working at it. Second is I would say the regulations. over the years again, if an MSME has to follow some 2,500 regulations, out of which 1,500 are criminal intent, how are you unleashing the animal spirit of an entrepreneur? So that again requires substantial change. Third is the entrepreneur himself. There is no R&D focus in what they do. So that also has to be brought in. Now IT is available, technology, so they should become a really tech-savvy or tech-enabled organization. So like there's a number of such reasons why which this change has to be brought in.
But yeah, I'm quite hopeful that with
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So with the investment that we are making in semiconductor and the Make in India, there are a number of projects which are now taking off. And in mobile manufacturing, the value add is still low, but I think we need to work on ensuring that there's a higher value add. And Mr. Ajay Chaudhary was here in the morning, and he spoke a lot about what we can do in terms of increasing the value add. But Sanjay, would you also like to add your views, because his question was also directed to you?
No, I think point is a very interesting point, where in the software industry, export was the focus, and in the hardware industry, as I said, or a larger electronics industry, the domestic market itself is a very large opportunity and actually an essential hurdle to cross to get economies of scale, etc. But I think, and I'm an optimist, I think there's a lot of things happening in the right direction. The catalytic moment in that sense, in my mind, has already happened. The whole Atmanirbhar agenda in the telecom sector, for example, how many of us would have even imagined 5 years back that we could have a completely designed and made in India 100% base station which will do 4G and 5G and will stand in front of the world is I think not possible. So the confidence which has come up in the country is what encourages me. So I'm very sure that even government, I think, is and we have to look at it from a larger public interest perspective. See, government also wants to do this stuff, but does not want to thrust something down people's throat just because it's Indian. However, we as entrepreneurs and domestic industry, if we show them 80% sign of a success, I'm confident government will add the 20% slack and give a fair opportunity. So in my mind, the catalytic moment has happened. Now it's for the domestic industry to amplify and magnify the successes that we have, the opportunities which have come. And with every other success, trust me, a lot of the doors which are currently closed will start opening, and a lot of the hesitancy which is there, either at the center or the states or the buyers that you mentioned, will start going away on itself. So I really feel that we from industry had to move some heavy lifting to at least get past that tipping point, which has already happened.
Sorry. Just to clarify, I'm not a pessimist. Actually, also answering to his particular question, but I'm a techno-optimist, I would call it. I have seen India changing from a snake charmer's country, bankrupt on foreign exchange in 91, no jobs, riots all over, to today emerge as a globe tech powerhouse, thanks to all the energies that have gone into making the industry success. So I'm very optimistic. It's just that there are certain serious challenges I see in certain segments. Thank you.
Okay, so one piece that I've left out of the entire 2047 journey is the India stack and the UPI Aadhaar and all of that, the health stack which is coming up and so on. But just before this particular session, there was a session, a very long session, which was almost about, I think, a 20-25-minute session only on that particular topic, and that is why I thought that I will not have the discussion around that. So we have 1 minute and 23 seconds left, and so let me end with you, Ashank, that in terms of what you foresee as the challenges that are going to be there in this journey of the next 25 years.
Technology or for
Technology,
the country?
yeah, for taking that technology leadership in the globe. And could there be geopolitical challenges as well?
Yeah, so good that you already answered the question. First challenge, or the biggest challenge, if there is any, is likely to be geopolitical. Because technology is about power, technology is about making things happen with a powerful way, which is not likely to be necessarily welcome by every power in the world. So there is always going to be a pushback from the geopolitical angle. And history has seen it from the beginning. You know, we were having 25% of GDP apparently in 1780 or 1810 or whenever it was. And many things happened. Some of them have a geopolitical significance. So that's one large point, and we can't ignore it. We have to carefully find our journey with right partnerships, right, what should I say, strategy again. The strategy comes back again there.
Right.
Our strategic positioning in the world has to be seen that way. That is one. Second is, the reciprocal part of it is India's response to many of these global challenges also will decide whether what we become. What is the response of India to the global problems itself will also decide our positioning. So others have to play a role, but we also have to play a role. And I will not mention countries, but there is always going to be pushback based on your way of doing things. So fortunately, India has a lot of plus points, so I'm very comfortable. Yet, we should be very clear as to how we are seen globally. We'll also make that difference as to what we can be. So that's second point. I am less worried about education and entrepreneurship because I see that as our strengths, and I don't see they becoming a constraint to us. So that is a positive part. But I think some of the issues that we still face in the country in terms of doing business and speed of business, some of those have to be changed very fast. I think we can't, world is not waiting for us. I think we are moving there. It's not that we are static. However, I think our speed of change is not so fast. So I think speed of change of the government is something that can become a constraint. Right. And last and not the least, there is this cultural aspects, and some of it is, as Harish was saying, has manifestation in terms of what happens. I think some of our cultural traits which are there, you know, some chalta hai attitude, or, you know, taking things for granted, and some of these integrity issues and so on, I think we need to bring them under control. And it is all about judiciary, government, and executive triangle. I think some of these have to be in place. If they are not, we will remain in middle income trap, and it has happened to many countries. There was a time when South America was leading the world, which is not the case now. So I think we need to learn from that. So to summarize, as I said, geopolitical pushbacks, our geopolitical stand, and how we manage our country internally in terms of governance and culture and trust can become a constraint. I have taken more than 1 hour, 23 seconds, one minute, 23 seconds, because your question was very big.
No, I know. Some of the debates that we've been having in this panel could be full day sessions also. And I would just like to sort of, you know, add to what you just now said is what C.P. Gurnani in his session just talked about towards the end, where he said that we should be proud, but we should not be arrogant, and we should do it with humility, which has been the way in which we have always done business in the past. So with that, thank you very, very much for this panel, and a round of applause for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Can we have a quick photo?